You're listening to Loving BDSM Podcast, episode 23. Hey everybody, Kayla Lords here. Today, let's talk about finding the right DS partner for you. Welcome to the Loving BDSM Podcast. If this is your first time listening, glad to have you. If you're back for another week, welcome back. Loving BDSM is produced every Friday for your kinky pleasure and education, and show notes are found at kaylalords.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. If you love what you hear, we'd love a good review on iTunes to help other kinksters find us. You can follow me on Twitter at Kayla Lords or stalk John Brownstone at southernsirsplace.com. All links are in the show notes. Does your business cater to the kinky with toys, videos, products, or services? You should sponsor the Loving BDSM podcast. Contact me, Kayla Lords, to learn more. Now, on with the show. I love it when things just sort of happen, and I think, this would be good to talk about on the show. A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with a fellow baby girl who I adore, who's been having trouble finding a daddy, and she knows that's what she wants. She wants a daddy. Then the other day, I got an email from a new dominant who knows he's the nurturing, caring kind, but feels like all he finds are submissives who want something a little more hardcore than he's comfortable with. And he's really unsure about littles and baby girls. Now, before anyone says I should have set these two up, let me just say, oh hell no. I do not get involved with that kind of thing. But the things I told them both were so similar, I knew someone else out there in the kinky world might need to hear it too. So here goes. First of all, if anyone is expecting me to give you a list of steps to find the exact perfect partner who loves all the kinks you do and will be the baby girl to your daddy or the sir to your pet or the schmoopsie to your snookums. Okay, maybe I made that last one up. Think again, okay? I wish I could give you that kind of information because we all want to believe there's a, quote, right way to go about picking out the perfect kinky partner. Well, guess what, y'all? There isn't. So I know some of you go on FetLife or Color Me or Adult Friend Finder and you use titles and preferences and other factors to find your exactly right person based on what you think you want and or need. And I know some of you are still alone, and on top of that, you're getting lied to and used and ghosted and ignored, fucked and done, and you're starting to believe that either all dominants are entitled assholes, or that all submissives just want someone to tell them what to do without having to actually contribute to the relationship. And here's where I think you're going wrong, and it's the number one thing I tell people when we talk about finding your kinky one. Look for a person you like, someone you connect with, someone who makes you laugh, who intrigues you. Don't look for the title first. The title is meaningless until you want to be with that person. Now, let me back up here. I don't mean if you're submissive and you know you want a dominant partner, don't look for dominance. I mean, don't think I have to have a master. You don't necessarily know that. I have to have a daddy. So you go looking for the person that has daddy in their title. That doesn't mean anything. Anybody can call themselves anything. It's about how they make you feel, not what they call themselves. See what I mean? So some people will say that I'm wrong, that they'll tell you not to even worry about BDSM, to just ignore that part and go find a person and then sort of tell them about your kink. Well, nah, I'm not going to tell you that. When I met John Brownstone, it was fully with the knowledge that the only men I wanted to meet in a sexual, possible relationship kind of way were dominant men. Now, for me, I wanted someone with enough experience to know he was dominant. Even if he wasn't sure what kind of dominant he was, he knew he's dominant. Now, you might be in that camp of, let me just go meet people and then we'll talk about kink later. Good for you. I'm in the find the kinky person and see if there's a connection group, okay? That's where a lot of what I'm telling you is coming from. I'm assuming that the person you're talking to you already know they're kinky and they already know you're kinky, okay? When you do that, here's why I think that's important. And there are a few reasons, okay? First of all, unless you've been into kink for like 40 years, you don't know everything you like in the world of BDSM, okay? Not until you start trying it. And quite frankly, I have friends who've been doing this 20 and 30 years and they still find stuff new to them that they like. So, while you think today that you want a stern dominant who never smiles, have fun with that one, by the way, you may find that you enjoy a teasing, nurturing type of dominance. Or maybe you think that all submission should be in the bedroom, and that's the only kind of submissive you want, and then you discover 24/7 or master slave, and you're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Or on the flip side, You think you want 24/7, and then you realize you really don't want that much responsibility, and you'd prefer to keep it in the bedroom. You see what I mean? You don't really know until you start trying it, okay? So instead of finding the person to fit your vision of an ideal relationship dynamic, I think you need to find the relationship dynamic that fits you and the person you have a connection with. Now, that doesn't mean you're not always a daddy or always a kitten or whatever. It just means that with each person you meet, you may find a different side of yourself responding to them. In my first DS relationship, I was pet. He was sir. Very strict, very structured type of DS relationship. And I enjoyed it, okay? What that meant, though, is that he was also a very clear and swift disciplinarian, even when most of our relationship was over the phone. For part of our relationship, I gave him control over my diet because I really needed to get a handle on it, not unlike now. And I once got corner time because while I was making my kids a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I took a quick lick of peanut butter. You know how you do, either the knife or your finger or whatever. We all do it. Don't even act like you don't do it. Anyway. So I did that, and being who I was and part of our relationship, I told him. It wasn't a confession. I was just going, oh yeah, and I had a taste of the peanut butter, and it was great. His immediate response was, oh, you're totally getting corner time for this. Immediate. No question, no talking it out, no, nothing like what I might have now. And it sounds harsh, right? It was. Even now, I'll say, it was a little harsh. But it helped me, and truth be told, in that relationship, as much as I hate corner time, I was totally turned on. I liked the strictness of it. I liked the structure. Well, let's fast forward. I met John, who was sir at first, and I was pet or little one, depending on his mood. Neither of us could imagine him being a daddy. I couldn't even imagine saying the word. But here we are, 3 years later, after some ups and downs and ins and outs and shifts in our relationship, and we are very firmly daddy and baby girl. That's our relationship dynamic right now. Look, I don't think there's a place, a good place anyway, for really rigid thinking in the world of kink. People change, preferences change, circumstances change, and that means the title you have or the dynamic you prefer or the way you play can and probably will change over time. So when it comes to finding a DS partner, go ahead, make sure they're into kink. It definitely makes explaining your sexual preferences less awkward, but don't worry about what they call themselves, sir, master, daddy, whatever. Instead, think about how they affect you. Think about the butterflies in your stomach when you get to talk to them or you see them. Think about how you can't stop smiling when you talk about them to somebody else or you see their number on your caller ID. That's where the focus should be in the beginning. And if that's not there, well, what is there that gets you going? It doesn't have to be that. Those are my things. That's what I went through with John. I can't imagine most people. This is stereotypical, but I cannot imagine most men getting butterflies in their stomach. And if there are any men who get butterflies, please email me and tell me. Anyway, but whatever it is that gives you a strong positive reaction when you think about them, that's where your focus should be at first, okay? Now, once you find that person that you like enough to want to spend time with and even consider getting kinky with, then it's time to start thinking about how this dynamic between you will work, okay? First of all, in any DS relationship, there's a shit ton of negotiation, so you're going to have to talk about it anyway, okay? It's not just he calls himself daddy and I want to be a baby girl and this just happened. So the dynamic needs to be, and is going to be, I hope, a huge conversation for you. So now's the time to flesh it out, and here's where you may be surprised. Now, you might find that most of your kinks line up, very few adjustments, you're just kind of really compatible right out of the box. And that's great. If that happens for you, that's awesome. I think a lot of us can say that happens, and what happens is you both sort of change over time. But it might not be that way. You may find that they like something you never even considered before. Now, I will say, if it is not within your hard limits, I really encourage you to try whatever that thing is at least once before deciding whether you like it or not. I like being tied up, like tied to the bed, that kind of bondage, but I never actually thought about rope bondage in the shibari style, the artistic kind of rope bondage. Tying me to the four corners of the bed, yeah, that was totally hot. But John Brownstone introduced me to a different kind of rope bondage, and if I had been asked about it, well, not that I wasn't asked, but if somebody off the street had gone, what do you think of rope bondage? I would have said, I don't think it's for me. I could take it or leave it. Oh, and then along comes John Brownstone, and he starts tying me up with rope and doing these really intricate things, and, making the girls stand up, with a rope bra, and all kinds of cool things. And I love the feeling. Now, I don't love the time it takes to stand there and get tied up, but I love that feeling. And I never would have known that. I would have dismissed it. I wouldn't have even bothered thinking about it if he hadn't introduced it to me and I had been willing to try. You see what I'm saying here? You don't know what you like until you try. So, in the course of this discussion, in the course of this negotiation, you might find that they want things from you you're not ready to give, okay? And that is actually perfectly okay. The DS dynamic, whether it is sexual or not, comes completely down to trust. Yes. Everything in BDSM is about trust to a certain extent, and it's all about communication. But in order to get to that point where you trust one another, you have to have communication, honesty, and integrity. Now, once this other person, this dominant to your submissive, this submissive to your dominant, whatever, earns your trust, you may be more willing to try new things or show sides of yourself you've kept hidden away, even from yourself, most of your life. Now, I can only give a very personal example, and it does not apply to everybody on the planet. I understand that, but I think it's more common than we realize. Now, for anybody who knows me in the world as Kayla Lords, I'm very clearly a baby girl. Even when I'm sarcastic and snarky, there's the baby girl there. There's kind of no question. But for me, that's not actually a kink. That's a side of my personality. Part of being a baby girl is, screaming, "Fuck me harder, Big Daddy." And I have definitely said that before, being his naughty little girl. Sure, I've been that. But for me, when I have to think about being baby girl, that's when I'm laughing and giggling and teasing and making jokes and wiggling my ass, and I'm just freaking playful as hell. Until I get upset. And then being baby girl is the teary-eyed, someone please take care of me, I'm going to stomp and pout when I'm mad part of me. First of all, the tearful side is not something I ever show in public. Vanilla or otherwise, okay? I certainly couldn't in the working corporate world back in the day. And as a parent, children are like wolves. They can sense weakness from a mile away. So no, they're not getting to see the baby girl tearful. They can see the vanilla side angry, but not the baby girl pouting, crying, "Daddy, please make a better" side. Now, on the flip side of that, outside of the Kayla Lords world, and even sometimes within it, I'm fairly reserved in public. I don't like to talk to people I don't know. I don't like to have attention drawn to me. Most you might get is a polite smile, and then I'm going to try really hard to get out of making small talk. That is who I am. So, in that realm, you're not going to see the wiggly, giggly girl who can't stop cracking jokes or whose eyes sparkle when she's feeling mischievous, or so I've been told. That is baby girl to me, okay? Now, for years, my whole life, that's been a part of who I am. I tamped that side of myself down through most of my childhood and up until I met John Brownstone, because certain parts of that were not acceptable. I had to be the strong one. I had to be in charge. I had to be in control, which is no different than what most submissives will tell you, that they could not even admit that side of themselves to themselves. They couldn't allow that side to show until they met the dominant who brought it out in them, or they got into a space and a place where they felt safe to be that way. My baby girl, it was easier to admit I was a submissive and to be submissive than it was to be a baby girl. Being baby girl is my most vulnerable self. And it was John Brownstone who brought it out of me, okay? The only way he brought it out of me is because I trust him completely. I feel safe with him. I know that no matter what I show him, even if he doesn't like it, he will accept it. He will work with it. He will say, this is part of who she is, okay? And that's where we had to get to before I could let myself explore the parts of me I'd been hiding for years, and then, after I had explored it, show it to him and give it to him and go, okay, what do we do with this? And from that, we went from sir and pet to daddy and baby girl. And even though we play around with other parts of who we are, primal and prey and sadist and masochist, at our core, we're daddy and baby girl. Those are our most vulnerable selves. Now look, we all have vulnerabilities. Every one of us. Everybody. Nobody doesn't have them. Even if you never admit them to yourself, they're there, okay? What I'm saying when it comes to being vulnerable is that you have no idea what kind of dominant or submissive you might become in a long-term relationship until you meet the person who makes you feel safe and earns that trust. That's the person you can let your guard down with and just be completely yourself, whoever that person is. Which, in case you wondered, is as scary as it sounds, and quite frankly, a lot of people never let themselves get to that place. Which is why, in my opinion, even kinksters who know all the right things to do and say in a DS relationship can end up unsatisfied. Look, we bare our souls when we're supposed to in this dynamic in a way that we either can't or won't or just aren't willing to in a more vanilla relationship. And I do think that vanilla relationships, successful ones, have this level of soul bearing, and more vanilla relationships could be more successful with this level of soul bearing. But in DS, it's for a healthy, successful DS dynamic, it's a requirement. But if you can't find the person who gives you the freedom to do that, or makes you feel like you have the freedom to do that, then ultimately, you're either going to have just an kind of relationship, or things are going to end, and you'll be in that seesaw thing of in a relationship, out of a relationship, yo-yoing back and forth, and you'll constantly be back on the market looking for your perfect partner, dominant or submissive, never realizing that what you need, in my opinion, is to find the right person for you so that you can create your perfect DS dynamic, whatever that may look like. Look, what you think you want in a DS relationship, or what worked for you in the past in other relationships, that's a great starting point for figuring out a new relationship or for looking for new partners. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I really identify with being a master, so let's start with people who identify as slaves. You got to start somewhere, but when that doesn't work, because sometimes it doesn't, branch out a little bit, first of all, and think about the person in front of you who could be experiencing the relationship with you, okay? That's what matters most. And it's actually okay if your kinks don't match up perfectly. It's okay if you prefer different types of dynamics. If the connection exists between you, you might be able to find some middle ground. I'm sure you will, actually, if you have a strong enough connection. Or create your own completely unique to you dynamic. Master and kitten, anyone? Mistress and baby boy? Hell, I don't know. Pick some titles and start mashing them up. You could have that. The labels we give ourselves should be the starting point of discovering ourselves and each other in the world of BDSM, not the end point, okay? That's not the goal. That's where you start from. That's your launching off point. If you can even think that of a title. You might know you're dominant and not have a clue what kind you are because you're waiting to meet the actual submissive that you like. And from there you'll go there. You might be submissive and not know what the hell that means until your dominant gives you a command. Okay? To me, it's not about what you call yourself. It's about what you're called by the person who you care about the most. So maybe you think you're a daddy, but then you hear master and you get rock hard. Or, in John Brownstone's case, he's fucking me like boom, 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 and it was awesome. And I screamed out daddy in the middle of it. And from that moment until now, he has been daddy. And I promise you that was a really good fuck after I did that. OMG. You just don't know. I want to keep saying you just don't know. Forget the labels and titles, okay? Once you find the person that you connect with and you know, okay, they're kinky and I'm dominant and that one's submissive and here we go, we're going to try this. Start with that person. Everything about them, not just the title they've given themselves, and go from there. That's what I think you should do to find the right DS partner for you. As you can see, I'm back to my old ranting, fighting form this week. The cold, quote unquote, I had for 2 weeks was actually a sinus infection. Thank God for antibiotics. So after I've just ranted at you for all that time, hopefully you gleaned a few things from that. That's it for me this week. Be back next week with who knows what. I'm sure another rant because I've had it bottled up inside for a while. If you have any questions or any topic suggestions or just anything you want to just share, feel free to contact me or John Brownstone. Leave a comment on the show notes page, whatever. We really do reach back out and talk to people, and we enjoy it. And we all have something to learn from one another. Neither of us thinks we know it all. I learn more from people sharing their stories with me. That's how I can then share something new with you guys. You see how that works? So I'm back, if you can't tell. I'm ranting, if you can't tell. But it is time for me to go and find other kinky things to do. Woo! Keep it kinky, y'all, and we'll see you next week.